Good, good morning, Shu Ping. Linda, welcome. Okay, we're calling our breakout rooms back. We'll be ready in just a few minutes. Oh, Mauricio, love that. Getting a little video from Karleen ahead of time. That's so sweet. Yeah, you getting ready for Halloween? Yeah, he is. Okay, it looks like our Zoomers are popping back. Just one more minute to get us muted and reorganized for this morning's talk. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. We've got a lot of activity here in the Zendo as we're getting settled in for our talk. Such cute little voices running around here. Just another minute. Welcome back, everyone. Up. We're getting our sippy cups and juice boxes and everything organized. We're settling in here. It's with a very warm welcome and great excitement that I'd like to introduce to you all this morning Karleen Manchanda, who is our co-steward of our Mindfulness for Parents Circle, also a board member and an active participant of our Zen Center, a student here of Jun Roshi, all the way from Canada. So thank you for being here with us this morning. Karleen Manchanda is going to be speaking to us this morning on the whole world in our hands, self-care as compassion for all. Thank you, Karleen.
Thank you so much, Kelly. It is just a delight to see everybody. I think I saw, I know I saw Mauricio, and I think I saw CJ, and there are two friends in the Zendo that I don't know their names yet. But I am really thrilled to see you. And I think online I have a friend, Krista, who has her daughter there as well. And this is exciting. So I don't know if this is like the first, Zen talk that will feature an ukulele. It might be. We'll see how it goes. We'll have the peacemaker mind of not knowing. But I'm very excited to be here. If I haven't met you yet, my name is Karleen Manchanda, and my pronouns are she and her. And as Kelly said, I'm a past board member, but I do participate in the center from a distance, working with the parent group and also teaching some mindfulness and meditation courses online. I'm so grateful for this Sangha, and thank you for showing up today. I'm going to begin just with acknowledging that we're all gathered here on Turtle Island, and I'm joining you today from Treaty 1 territory, which is the ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, the Ininewak, the Anishinaabe, Dakota, and Dene peoples. And it is also the traditional homeland of the Red River Métis. And in the spirit of our Zen practice, I offer this acknowledgement to honor the indigenous ancestors that cared for the lands that we now call home, and to invite reflection on the conditions that have shaped the places and people where we live. May we continue to grow in awareness, understanding, and compassion. So yes, my talk today is titled "The Whole World in Our Hands," and that might ring a bell for some people, that phrase. Self-care is compassion for all. And I think that, on the Bodhisattva path, which is basically a path where we commit to being kind of caregivers and serving all beings and trying to ease the suffering of all beings, which is a very high aspiration, but it kind of keeps us pointed in the direction of compassion. And although we may travel this path, I think this aspiration can feel like it is in conflict with caring for ourselves, that where we're putting out the energy for others, that there may not be enough or enough time or energy left for ourselves. And particularly since this is a happy Family Morning Zen day, I think that for myself as a parent who has children who are now 22 and almost 20, I know that that idea of how do I take care of myself while I'm taking care of others. And the question that I kind of want to explore is, how do we care for ourselves while we care for others? And while we care for this world that is really in need of so much love. And so I'm going to start with a song, and I'm going to kind of do a song sandwich. So if in the middle there's just too much, adult wah, 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 the kids are absolutely welcome to drift back, into the community room, and they can regather when we sing again at the end. But this song, I don't know if this gentleman is known as well in the States as he is here in Canada, but it's by a Canadian children's artist named Fred Penner. And he is actually from right here in Winnipeg. And he wrote a children's song that is really just about caregiving. And it's called "Take Good Care of Each Other." So I'm going to have to do a couple of things. One is to turn this sound on. Okay. Thanks for the thumbs up, Chris. I can see I've got stuff pulled in front of my screen, but I can see your thumb up. So glad we can hear both my voice and the instrument. So this is an ukulele, just in case kids or grown-ups haven't really seen. And it's kind of, I think it's kind of known nowadays as like a fun instrument, kind of, very lighthearted. But for me, having grown up in Hawaii, this instrument is actually an instrument of love. It really is. I grew up playing it, and I grew up playing even in an ukulele choir where we would play and sing at different venues. And always an expression of that aloha that June Sensei and her halau are always so gifted at expressing. This is another way. So when I share this with you, I'm also sharing my love with you. This is "Take Good Care of Each Other." Take good care of each other. That's what friends like to do. Let your sisters and brothers help you learn that it's true. We all need to feel wanted for the people who we are. So take good care, take good care, take good care of each other. You can try it with me if you remember some of the words, or just hum if you want. Take good care of each other. That's what friends like to do. Let your sisters and brothers help you learn that it's true. We all need to feel wanted for the people who we are. So take good care, take good care, each other. Thank you. Thanks. I hope some people tried to sing along. I know perhaps our Winnipeg friends online might have known that song to sing along. So, taking care of each other, right? That's part of what self-care is actually all about. And so as we, move through our lives and take care of others, how do we best care for ourselves? I think, particularly this shows up in many realms of life, but I can say as a parent, I was hit squarely with this question, but I'm a slow learner, and it probably took me until my first child was maybe six years old, so kind of 6 years of parenting, to suddenly realize that I was really good at honing in on their needs and trying to take care of whatever I could for them. But in the process of really solely focusing on that, I kind of neglected to realize that I had to put some of that attention and care on myself. And it had some very negative consequences. So, when I came across this article in a Lions Roar magazine article, which was by Sensei Koshin Paley Ellison, who is the co-founder of New York Zen Center for Contemplative Care, he wrote an article called How to Practice Self-Care, because in his field of work, it's all about, giving care in medical settings. And he said, we live in a world where we're faced with all kinds of stressors right now, challenges, whether it's personal, whether it's political, environmental, and it can feel overwhelming. And then from, the culture, I guess, comes what he calls, and quote, soothing voices telling us to take time out and have a spa day, binge some Netflix, do some yoga, or attend an online seminar on mindfulness or mental health. And granted, these things can be good and nourishing. Slowness and stillness are needed to reconnect with ourselves and attend to our own well-being. Yet, from a Buddhist point of view, the notion of self-care calls for rigorous and tender questioning. And when I read this article, it really gave me pause, to reflect on what is it that I consider self-care. And as a Buddhist and a Zen practitioner, what could it mean? Aside from what the popular culture wants to tell us about what self-care should or could be. And so I think that, in reflecting on this, I really felt like there are some competing ideals that we have about self-care. So one of these ideals, and this is definitely something that comes up in our, Buddhist teachings, is this idea of selflessness, right? Always put others before yourself. And it has this element of self-sacrifice. And this is something that's, for many people, is considered, virtuous, right? Putting others before yourself. And so, but what I think can happen is that this can start to become translated as the belief that others are more important than myself, right? That self-care is selfish or it's an indulgence. And because I'm caring for others, I don't have time to care for myself, right? And this kind of thinking, I think, is what leads to exhaustion, resentment, and poor health. And I speak of that from personal experience, having this kind of idea that, yeah, it's all about other people and it's not really okay for me to acknowledge my own needs. Then on the flip side, we have the other school of thought that then says to us, put on your own oxygen mask first, right? You can't help others if you don't help yourself. And so then I think, and it's not that either of these are untrue, right? Or not valid. It's that how we start to interpret this. If we're thinking, okay, I've got to get my oxygen mask on first. I've got to make time for self-care. Then sure, you can prioritize yourself, but then self-care becomes kind of this prerequisite to happiness, right? This prerequisite to being able to serve others. I have to find time for myself, or I won't be able to care for others. And that kind of thinking, I think, tends to lead us into anxiety, feelings of inadequacy. We're not good enough because we can't find the time for it, that kind of thing, and stress. And so what I sort of came up with is this idea that these kinds of belief structures, they put us in this either or kind of thinking or attitude, so that we believe that we have to choose one over the other. So either I put myself first or I put other people first. It has to be one or the other, either or. And this here is where I think Sensei, Koshin Sensei was trying to, point us in that direction of realizing that that kind of belief thinking, that kind of belief structure of thinking, it leads to a separation between ourselves and others, which is sort of the opposite of what we practice for in our Zen practice, right? So this separation, I think, is something that can be very detrimental if self-care becomes something that actually reinforces that false notion of self as separate from others. And I think that our practice really kind of asks us to go beyond thinking, right, that there's a self to protect and there's a self that is actually separate from everything else. And so my curiosity is that, can we shift to a both and kind of thinking, right? If we understand that we're interconnected and we're interdependent, right? Then could it be that we can actually, that when we care for ourselves, it is actually going to contribute to caring to others. And when we care for others, it does actually contribute to caring for ourselves, to kind of shift slightly that narrative that we have about what it means to care. And maybe, Koshin Sensei pointed out, it's not so important. Are we caring for myself? Am I caring for others? But it's just about care, about seeing the need that's before us and then being able to respond in a caring and compassionate way. And something that kind of came to my mind is like, if we're caring for a flower and we're giving it what it needs, right? Water, food, putting it in sunlight, would we expect that just one leaf would grow and just one petal would bloom? No, right? All parts would benefit from that care, and all parts would grow together. And this is how my curiosity is, how can we move ourselves towards that kind of thinking when we think about caring for ourselves and others? And I think too, this is the kind of maybe unhelpful ideas about self-care can really come from like this popular culture notions, right? And I kind of came up with categories. Like I think when people say, oh, here are self-care practices that we can do, and they're very important, they're sort of the category of what I'll call pampering, right? And I'm not saying at all that any of these are wrong and that we should never do them. That's absolutely not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that we should be clear about what purpose or, what need that activity is actually serving, right? So there could be pampering, that's one category, kind of the spa day, the binge watching, the treats that we eat or drink, that kind of thing. There's the category of escaping, right? Maybe we have movie night, we go on a vacation, we may do a retreat. And again, This isn't a good, bad kind of thing. This is just noticing that these are kind of the things that activities that are listed on lists on the internet. This is sort of the categories that they fall into. And then the other is improving, right? This self-care to improve ourselves, our health and our stress levels in particular. And so obviously, and particularly in that regard, like, yes, these kinds of self-care activities can be helpful and some are actually necessary. I'm not saying to dismiss your doctor's advice, right? But I think sometimes these types of strategies can feel like adding activities or expectations to a list of things to do that for most of us is already pretty full, right? Now I need to add these things. And so again, maybe a shift of thinking, I started to wonder, is it possible to consider that letting go instead of adding is also self-care, right? What helps us in particular to let go of harmful and unhelpful beliefs, thoughts, and habits? That's the kind of letting go I'm talking about. It's sort of the internal work that we do. And these are not always like pleasant and enjoyable undertakings. Sometimes the letting go is like, come on, let go. There's all this resistance. But that is where, that's where our practices of mindfulness and meditation, right? Of choosing to follow the precepts, things like non-harming, right? Deciding to participate in something like Ango, where as a Sangha, together with others, we are just giving ourselves opportunities to bring that awareness without judgment and with a lot of kindness into this moment, as it is, just as it is. And, I think that in some ways, I feel like this is what I'm calling, this is not a formal term by any means, but I'm calling it deep care. It's the kind of care that moves us in the direction of oneness, right? If we can let go of our false notions of how we're insufficient, or we just can't, we don't have the capacity to care for others and ourselves, because I do actually believe that everyone has the capacity, right? It's just how much are we able to access it? And so the deep care is the kind that I feel like would move us more in the direction of oneness, of openness, of compassion. And, family relationships, especially parenthood, they kind of force us to recognize exactly that it is because we have to care for others, our own care matters. Right? Our own care matters because we have to care for others. And that cultivating compassion for all beings includes ourself. That was a big one for me. Thich Nhat Hanh has a beautiful saying that, can be recited every morning when you wake up, and I try to remember to do it. And it's, waking up this morning, I smile. 24 brand new hours lie before me. I vow to live each moment completely in the present and to see all beings, and I add, including myself, with the eyes of compassion, right? And when we can notice our own pain and suffering, can we then tend to it? Or are we going to distract and distance ourselves from it? Those are the kinds of choices that we can examine and make, right? When we engage in self-care, does the impact of what we chose to do actually match our intention? Like, can we really notice the actual effects of our actions? And this was a teaching that the Buddha apparently gave to his son, Rahula, there's a sutra about it that Koshin Sensei mentioned, and I was very curious and looked it up, and it's the gist of it is, before you do something, while you do something, after you do something, you're asking yourself the question, is this action going to sort of alleviate, or is it going to cause suffering? And as it happens, you notice, you observe, is what is happening. And after, you reflect on that and you say, okay, what actually happened? I thought that this would help, but what actually happened was the impact of it ended up not being so helpful. And being able to, with kindness to yourself, acknowledge that and then be able to choose to do something differently next time, right? That's kind of how I look at it. And a very, recent example for me was I was fortunate to take a trip to Seattle to visit my family. My sister lives there, my brother-in-law and his family, and my parents were going to fly from Chicago to Seattle. And I decided to meet them there without husband, without kids, and prior to this, I had been really struggling with kind of the sense of frustration as a mom, just getting irritated by all the things that I had to do over and over, the things I have to say over and over, and thinking 22 years I've been doing this. And then this opportunity came up, and I thought, that would be an act of self-care. Like I convince myself I can do this. I'm not going to feel guilty about it. I'm going to go, and this will help alleviate that suffering that I was having from the frustration, right? And so I went, and I chose the self-care of kind of escaping, right? I went on a trip, and it did temporarily relieve that feeling for sure while I was there. And the self-care that it did really help with was actually connecting with my family. That was really good self-care, right? But then I came back home and, less than 24 hours after returning home, lo and behold, those feelings of frustration and, just feeling generally not good about life came back. And so I thought, okay, that sucks, and it's really interesting. And I decided to sit. I decided to sit with it. And I realized in the sitting that what was arising was actually not just frustration, but there was kind of this resentment and this anxiety. And I realized that I had this belief, which isn't really true, but that I'm trapped. I'm trapped as a parent. I'm kind of stuck because my two young adults are still living at home and they have certain challenges and I have to be here for that. And then I realized too, being with my parents who are getting older, I thought, gosh, I'm not going to have any time to actually be free. And then I'm going to be a caregiver, not just for my kids, but I may have to also be a caregiver for my folks. And I had this feeling of being trapped. And acknowledging that was actually very liberating because I realized, yeah, but Karleen, you're not actually trapped right now. That's just a thought and a worry and a concern and kind of, making a big deal out of something that is it's just what's happening right now. It's just life. And you're not the only person that's going through this kind of feeling. And so, the deep self-care, right? The deep self-care didn't come from what I thought it would come from. It came from choosing to be with those hard feelings and getting some clarity, and then working towards letting go of these beliefs, which I'm still working on. But it was the entry point. And so, what if self-care wasn't only about pampering, escaping, and improving? But maybe it could also be about awakening, right? And so the question that I loved, which also came from Koshin Sensei in a talk that he gave, I've adapted it only slightly, but the question that I would propose that we could try asking ourselves is, how will I care for my awakening heart and mind? Because an awakening heart and mind is what moves us towards oneness, right? When we wake up in those moments, this is what's the cause of the suffering is, it it helps to open us, and it helps us to realize I'm not the only one, and I can do something about this. I can shift the way I think. I can shift the way I see things. I actually have a lot of volition over that kind of thing, right? So could we care, do you think, in sort of the intimate everyday ways rather than the grand gestures, right? So, and here's some examples, particularly with our parents in mind. Remembering impermanence when you're comforting your screaming child, right? That's an intimate everyday way of practicing care for yourself and your child. Choosing connection with another over being right when there's a conflict or disagreement. Like sitting with your breath for just 5 minutes before leaving your car for work. Allowing anger in yourself or another to be a call for compassion. Like these are, sometimes they could seem like small things that could make a big difference. So our lives, I think, are actually filled with opportunities to notice how care for ourselves is not actually separate from caring for others. And I'm going to close before, we have some sharing and another song with just a short piece that I wrote just recently while all of these ideas were marinating in my head for this talk. I stand at the picture window looking out at the backyard. Grass still green and now adorned with curling leaves of yellow and brown. I look up at the elm trees that stand on our boulevards, strong and peaceful warriors who have faced illness, old age, and the stresses of modern living with perseverance and grace. A gust of wind moves through their branches, and suddenly a shower of leaves fall unhurried to the ground. And I am struck by the way trees can teach us that even strong ones must let go in order to care for themselves. That their letting go of what once supported them allows them to draw their energy inward during the seasons when conditions turn harsh, with cold and more darkness. They know how to care for themselves, not apart from who and what exists above, beneath, and around them, but in symbiosis with all of life. For when the next season comes, the care they offered themselves allows them to begin again as givers of oxygen, food, water, shelter, and beauty, as givers of nourishment for others. Their compassion is a cyclical dance of giving and receiving. It includes themselves and the entirety of life on earth. And this, to me, is what true care can be. So I invite you to explore these questions. How will I take care of myself while taking care of this world so in need of love? We truly do have the whole world in our hands in that way, not as a burden, but as an opportunity. Right? How will I care for my awakening heart and mind? So I would love for you to share some thoughts, and then we'll close with a song.
Here, Roshi June.
Karleen.
Karleen.
Echo here.
I
Don't know why. Is that one on? No. All right. Well, anyway, thank you so much for such a beautiful talk on self-care. And that poem that you wrote, just absolutely beautiful. And your realizations through your practice, just thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
Anyone else here in the room? Or online, go ahead. Unmute yourselves.
You,
You,
Khalid.
Karleen.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
totally
Totally
feel like
I,
my
my
thoughts
thoughts
in
in
spirit
spirit
with
with
your
your
talk.
talk.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
That's really heart touching.
Karleen,
Karleen,
I'm
I'm
not
not
speaking
speaking
much
much
because I'm
because
just
I'm just
thinking,
absorbed.
absorbing so much of what you said. There's so much to think about. And I especially appreciated the letting go rather than adding on. Thank you so much. Thank you, Robin.
I don't know if an echo. Okay, now. Good morning, Roshis, and good morning, Sangha. Thank you so much, Karleen, for this beautiful, beautiful talk. I feel like everything you touched on is everything that is happening for me right now, and what a reassurance that and a reminder that I'm not alone. Just hearing you share about you and the collective we, and I really appreciated you know the perspective that as I care for myself, certainly then I am caring for others because I am other. We are all connected. What a great perspective. Because for me right now, just in my journey, I am contemplating that a lot. Like, how do I really care for myself in a brand new way? Part of the awakening is realizing how much self-care is necessary for myself as a bodhisattva. And I really have been struggling with, well, do I do me or do I do others? Do I do me or do I do my mom? Do I do me or do I do my marriage? Like, it's really has been this kind of battle inside of having to choose. And hearing you invite this wonderful opportunity to be like, wait, every time I care for myself, it would be just the same as when I'm on the cushion and I'm sitting for all sentient beings. So as I care for myself, I'm caring for all sentient beings. And also, I'm not depleted when I care for others because then I'm being cared for. Just what a wonderful truth that is. And I just feel just so expansive now. I just feel so less suffocating from this, what I told myself was a either or. Just a wonderful gift this morning, truly. And thank you so much. And thank you so much for your beautiful poetry and your singing and your ukulele and just beautiful what you gave this morning. So much of yourself, just so delightful. Thank you so much.
I have so much gratitude, Jackie. I'm very humbled. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I just chime in. It was a really beautiful talk. I really like the analogy of one petal doesn't grow when you feed the flower, and the picture of the trees letting go of the leaves. we're in the state of Washington right now, and I have this appreciation for trees that I never had before. Your talk was beautiful, and it really reinforced what I'm feeling in the surroundings I'm in right now. Really enjoyed it. Thanks, Karen.
Thank you all so much. I'm just noticing the time, so unless if there was somebody else that I don't know, I can't see everyone, but
In the room for a moment.
Hello. I was just curious, as a parent, what do you feel like is the most difficult thing to let go of? Other than obviously what you talked about in your talk, obviously that's a big thing. But I'm just kind of curious in general as well. Also, your glasses are awesome.
thank you very much. I would have to say, and I can only speak for myself, like at this stage of my parenting, at this point on the journey, one of the most important things that I'm having to learn to let go of is the idea that that I'm responsible for my kids' happiness. You know, I think we kind of fall into that pretty easily. Obviously, we want our kids to be happy, you know. But as they grow, part of, I think, the caring for them is actually letting go of this need to provide that happiness for them and to allow them to find their own way to that. So I would say that has been, it continues to be a real challenge for me, you know, to be able to let go of that. Yeah, that desire, that kind of wanting to ensure their happiness. Thanks for that question. So, as promised, we're going to finish with a song. Let's take my instrument of love back out here. And we're going to finish with We've Got the Whole World in Our Hands. And I have some special lyrics, and I tried to figure out a way that I could share them, but then when I do that, then I become minuscule on the screen. So I'm just going to trust that you know the chorus, most likely, and I know that there Mauricio, if he's still there, he may actually be willing to sing along, and he may have even come up with some motions. If you're moved to do some motions or to get up and move your body, do it. Let that be your self-care, to move with your instincts. All right, let me pull up my song sheet here. Yeah, we've got the whole world in our hands, based off of a traditional African-American song, actually, that was, he's got the whole world in his hands. But a lot of times now it's sung this way, and this is perfect for for all of us practicing together. All right, so, and this chorus is going to repeat in between the phrases where I throw in a bunch of hopefully fun and fancier, not really, but fun and different words. So sing along. I'm going to ask that, sadly, I would love to hear all of you, but as we know from our Saturday sitting group, when we all sing happy birthday to each other on Zoom with the microphone unmuted, it doesn't work very well for melodic purposes. So just check that you're muted, and but I hope that, especially in the Zendo where you've got lots of people together, that you try to belt it out. Don't be shy. So it goes, we know we've got the whole world. Oh, sorry. Okay. Nope. Got it. Oh my gosh. I don't know if I was given the whole talk with bad sound now. I think I had the wrong songs. We'll see how it goes. Okay. One more time. We've got the whole world in our hands. We've got the whole world in our hands. We got the whole world it's Family Morning Zen Day, we have some sisters and brothers and babies maybe. You've got you and me, sister, in our hands. We've got you and me, brother, in our hands. We've got the little bitty babies in our hands. We've got the whole world in our hands. All together, we've got the whole world in our hands. 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 And you can clap, you could stomp your feet, jump up and down. And a moment for Mother Earth. We've got the earth and the sky in our hands. We've got the trees and the flowers in our hands. We've got the oceans and the rivers in our hands. We've got the whole world 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 in our hands. And we have some special people in the Zendo. And here's a shout out to our Sangha, right? We've got Joshin Roshi in our hands. We've got Ryushin Roshi in our hands. We've got the Buddha Dharma Sangha in our hands. We've got the whole world in our hands. Everybody, we've got the whole world in our hands. 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 One more time. We've got the whole world in our hands. We've got the whole wide world in our hands. We've got the whole world in our hands. We've got the whole world in our hands. We've got the whole world in our hands. One last time. We've got the whole world in our hands. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful time together, and wherever you may be today. It's so beautiful to see everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Karleen. Thank you, Zoom, for being here this morning. Please stay for kinships. Have a wonderful Sunday.